Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Welcome back to the Australian Business Podcast. Today I'm joined by Zara. Zara, how are you?
Good, Jordan. How are you?
Good. And we're doing an interview today.
We are doing an interview today.
Beauty. We have Beth from St. Jack. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming in. We were going to do this episode without headphones for the first time, but here we are wearing headphones. It was too tricky.
Yeah, we wanted to keep the hair looking cute, but yeah.
Sorry.
The hair can still look cute. It's not a problem. We can work with anything.
We can work with anything.
100%. So to kick things off, how do you two know each other?
Beth and I used to work together a long, long time ago. And yeah, I guess we've just stayed in contact, been watching you and your business from sidelines, but from TikTok as well.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
People think that they know exactly what's going on because they're like, yeah, I saw it on TikTok. I'm like, that would be accurate. I do share everything online. So,
but yeah, so it's been really cool to watch your journey and how you've kind of progressed and how St. Jack has grown over the last couple of years. So keen to chat about it.
yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, to kick things off, do you want to kind of paint a little bit of a picture for our listeners of your journey so far?
I'm going to keep this short and sweet.
Go
like
for
Sabrina
it.
Carpenter. Yeah, so I had a couple different jobs in the lead up to COVID. I hate talking about the pandemic, but I kind of have to as part of the origin story.
Yeah.
That's how I met Zara, working in a digital marketing agency. I was in sales, so had a lot of exposure to small businesses. Then I trained as a makeup artist. I always just had a passion for beauty and makeup. And then I had built up my artistry career, left digital marketing to the side, built up my artistry career, was getting really good momentum with like bridal bookings and things like that, and then plunged into COVID lockdown, which was really unfortunate timing. And yeah, while we were kind of sitting in COVID for months and months, and then in Melbourne it turned into years and years, unfortunately.
It was very different in Melbourne.
Yeah, it was bonkers. I watched a TikTok actually. It was in May 2020. I remember it really vividly. And it was one of these TikToks that used to really perform very well that just don't perform anymore. And it was like they told me I couldn't start a successful e-commerce business in the pandemic, but look at me go. And it's like the labels printing and like the dog next to all the orders at home and all this stuff. And I remember going to bed that night and being like, oh, I wish I could do something like that. That sounds, that looks really fun and whatever. And then as I was going to sleep, I was like, well, I could do something like that. I'd had all this exposure to small businesses. I understood the e-commerce landscape. I did an inventory mentally in my head of all of the things that I used in my professional makeup kit. Beauty is very oversaturated. And so I didn't want to make lipstick. I had a friend who already had a lipstick brand. I didn't want to make something else that there were so many of. And I remembered a product that I had that had been imported from Canada. And it was a sanitizing spray for makeup products to use between clients. And I hated it. It was expensive because it was imported. It was a really poorly made packaging. It didn't smell good. And the nozzle for the spray made it come out all like chunky, which is the opposite of what you want. And so I was like, I could do that and I could do it better. And so I woke up the next morning and I started looking into cosmetic contract manufacturing and then snowballed from there. The rest is history.
Wow, that's crazy. So I guess it sounds like there was like a very aha kind of moment for you.
Yeah, it was a bit of an aha moment because I also was aware that coming out of the pandemic, there was going to be a much bigger focus on hygiene in beauty practices.
Of course.
Because there's a much bigger focus on hygiene everywhere. Like everyone's going nuts for hand sanitizer and all this sort of thing. And so it's really important as a makeup artist that I'm going to show you I'm sanitizing my hands in front of you so you can see like I'm not a dirty pig. And then I'm also going to have this spray that I ended up launching the following February, so February 2021, called Makeup Cleaning Mist. So I can spray down all of my eyeshadow palettes and bronzers and all this sort of stuff that I share in a bridal party. You would share most of those products between, the 6 or 7 makeups that you're doing. So in between each of you, you can see that I'm doing everything to protect you from skin infections, all sorts of crap, because it all lives on your face.
Yep.
It's a bacteria breeding ground. So it really was a product designed for people like me at the time, which was a professional makeup artist, which kept my pool of buyers reasonably small, which is why I ended up developing the brush cleaner that has much broader market appeal.
At what point did you realize that you've gone too niche and that you need to sort of expand? Was there a moment there, or was it just natural progression?
I kind of knew it as we were making it,
Yeah.
but it was a bit too late for that. And the thing was, like, the product itself, the first one, the makeup cleaning mist, actually did work as a brush cleaner, but not as effectively as I knew I could make a different formula.
Yeah.
There are other brush cleaners on the market that are chemically very similar to that blue spray that I launched 3 years ago now, that are sold that way. And I'm like, no, we can do better than that. But it was probably, like towards the end of 2021, that's when I started looking into manufacturing for the following product and formulating and research and development, because after, a good solid 9 months or so on the market, I'd kind of got all these big makeup artists who I love so much to use my product. But I was like, and then what?
Yeah.
Because it lasts a while. I'm like, and then what? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was probably less than a year.
Yeah, okay, cool. And on that manufacturing note, can you walk us through that process and how you found a supplier and what that looked like?
Yeah. I actually worked with 2 separate manufacturers, one for my first product, and then I left that manufacturer for reasons we don't need to talk about, but I just wasn't stoked with working with them.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't an amazing experience. And then I found the second one through my own network and talking to people and getting recommendations. But for the first one, if you don't have access to people who can share that with you, I literally just jumped on Google and I looked up cosmetic contract manufacturing, Melbourne, because it was very important to me at the time that I'd be able to go visit and shake hands. Like from back in my sales day and digital marketing, I just knew that everything was so much more powerful in person. So for me to go in there and be able to talk to people and really get that connection, didn't end up happening. Tried my best, went into the place and I just didn't love it that much. But it was that simple. What's actually harder is getting a reply. So you can send off a million contact forms on all of these websites. Like there's a manufacturer I'm really interested in here in Melbourne because of their sustainability practices. Never get a reply.
Really?
Even now, I can't get a reply. It's like you almost need somebody to introduce you to that person. But on the first one that I did, and this was years ago, I sent through a contact form. They didn't answer me. Because I think she ended up actually telling me this, but they get so many requests that they don't know who's serious or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went on LinkedIn after I didn't get a reply after 3 days. I looked up their business. I looked for the most senior person I could find in like customer service, kind of sales, whatever, direct message her on LinkedIn. And I was like, yo, I sent you a contact request. Haven't heard anything. I'm serious as a heart attack. Like, let's have this meeting. She emailed me back instantly. She's like, okay, we get a lot of people who have a couple rosés on a Friday night and who have a brilliant idea. But I can tell you're serious because you did this extra step, which to me seems so simple. So let's have a meeting.
Yeah.
But it is pretty easy just to Google it.
It's interesting that on the contact form, we have the same thing at Grayspace where we have a contact form online and we just get so much spam.
Yeah.
But the spam's getting good. We think it's a person. So it's super important that you have some type of filtering because that's a potential lost client. Like that business, if you've reached out to 10, like that's so much missed opportunity if that's happening constantly.
Yeah, it is. It is a missed opportunity, particularly for that other one that I'm talking about that I've kind of got. The other thing was at the time when I started, I had nothing. I had nothing to show for myself, didn't have any POs that I could show people to say, I've spent money in manufacturing before. I had nothing. So, but now even for, this other one, this super sustainable one that's somewhere in Melbourne, I don't know where, they didn't reply to me like 2 years ago. Like that was the last time I tried. It was a while ago. But it's like I had a social media, I had sales, like I had everything and they just didn't never replied to me. I'm like, that feels like a silly way of doing business.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
But,
totally.
What
were
do?
some of the other challenges that you faced early on in that?
Because so many. Because it's
Go through 'em all.
because it's an alcohol-based spray.
Yeah.
Or the first product, the second product, my brush cleaner, the one that actually like propelled my business, also has alcohol in it. But making an alcohol-based spray in 2020 was so dumb. I mean, it was smart from like a makeup artists are going to want this and need this, but the cost of alcohol, I was told at the time, because everyone was making hand sanitizer, et cetera, there was like a 90% plus inflation on the price, or markup on the price because of the supply and demand issue. So that was a problem. So my first round of manufacturing cost me 90% more than it should have because of the cost of raw materials was just so high. So fuck that. Promised myself I wasn't going to swear on the show. I won't do it again. I will. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And also because it has alcohol in it, it's a flammable product. So I had received flammable products in the mail before via Australia Post and via Star Trek from businesses like Mecca or Adore Beauty, for example. They can send you a hairspray or they can send you something else that has alcohol in it, no drama. So I was like, I'll be able to sort this out. Yeah. This is fine. Like if I can receive it, it means that it's possible. I was wrong. Talked to Australia Post. This is years ago. I've since signed a contract with Australia Post, which is amazing. But they were like, nah, you have to be sending 2,000 parcels a year minimum to get that kind of contract. And there's a percentage of orders that need to not have flammable stuff in it. And I was like, well, it's my only SKU, so we're not going to, and I'm not going to start with 2,000 orders. So figuring out the logistics. At that point when I got that news, I was shattered because I'd already spent probably upwards of 20,000. Like we were in production. I, again, went on LinkedIn and did a bleeding heart message on Careers Please. I went on Careers Please and I found the highest up person I could find in customer service. And I was like, I've just spent $20,000. I've got no way of moving this stuff. Like, what am I going to do? I had a contract with them the next day. So they were great for those first 2 years. But yeah, I kind of set myself up to fail a little bit with the first product being alcohol based. It's just much more difficult. Like if I had my time again, I wouldn't do that.
It sounds like networking was a really massive part of that as well.
It was huge. And I think this comes from the background in sales. Like even though I didn't do it for that long, but it was just under a year, but it was just the no shame approach to just asking people for help. Like I know it's a Michael Scott thing from The Office, but it's like you really do miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so I'm so happy to put myself out there, send a message and be like, please, can you help me? And the worst thing that's going to happen is they're not going to reply or they're going to say, it's really inappropriate for you to message me like that. Like I don't need to hear about your emotional breakdown. But every single time they helped. So,
And like you said, I guess the worst thing that they can do is say no. And then you go, okay, well, go back to the drawing board or I'll find someone else that'll say yes.
And that would probably be the biggest thing in terms of meeting these hurdles and then getting over them is having the resilience and the grit to be like, oh my God, I really am about to have a breakdown. Like I don't see the forest through the trees right now. Like what am I going to do? Coming back to the drawing board the following day and being like, all right, how are we going to do it? You know? So that really helped me through.
Did you have any particular people, whether it be like mentors or other kind of, I guess, people that had started businesses that you could lean on that could give you advice or that you could just roundtable ideas with?
It's a good question. Like in those early days, I was leaning a lot on my parents. I was also living at home during the pandemic, so we spent a lot of time together. But my dad is an entrepreneur. My mom is an entrepreneur. And so it was kind of easy for me to kind of bounce these conversations around. Recently, having friends who have e-commerce businesses, having friends who work in marketing, I've always got someone to talk to. So it's more my personal network though, rather than like being part of, you know, communities and stuff like that, which is, I should do more of that. But your network grows as you continue to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And what about, I guess, like that's kind of really focused in those early stages, but then maybe once you shifted to kind of, you know, you've just gone full-time in the last, how long, when did you start going full-time with Switch?
So the Blue Spray launched in February 2021. And then I got the brush cleaner to market in December 2022. So there's almost like a 2-year gap. In the interim, I still had other jobs. I went back to work at that digital marketing agency in the content team, which is absolutely no surprise. It's all making sense at this point because I went back to makeup artistry post-COVID. I just didn't love it as much as I did before. So I knew that I really wanted to make the product work. So got the formula happening for the brush cleaner. And in my mind, I thought the brush cleaner, because that's like my number one selling product. And in my mind, I was like, oh, all the makeup artists who buy my spray will love this brush cleaner. It'll be great. And then what the data has shown me since then, since we launched in December 22, is that it's actually more regular beauty lovers. And the thing that's amazing about that is there's hundreds of thousands of those, you know?
Yeah, totally.
More, millions. Like there's so many of those. So it just completely opened up the business. So I launched that product December 2022. I went viral on TikTok less than a month later in January. Completely sold out of all of the stock that I had made. And then proceeded to sell out 7 times in the next 7 months. So I would get stock, sell out of it completely, get stock, sell out of it completely. I was like, oh shit, people really like this. Okay. I need to start taking this more seriously. And then probably around this time last year, like August last year, I started to really make a plan for my exit from my job at that marketing agency just so that I could focus on this full time.
Yep.
And I left there December last year. So it was a year from basically that product launching to leaving my job.
Cool. Yeah. And what plan did you want to have in place before you left your full-time employment to transition?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I didn't really have a plan. I didn't even have a plan. What I knew was that I was struggling working that job and having all of the demands that the business was having on me, particularly in those later months having Black Friday happen. And it was like the first time having a product with mass market appeal with Black Friday, and we had ads running, and I was like, whoa, like this is like this volume is serious. And I was like, I don't have the time to have ideas and be creative while also self-fulfilling because I'm not in a 3PL and do all of this stuff. I can't, like, it was more of an emotional, I think, decision based on my mental health. I was in burnout. I was losing weight really quickly because I just wasn't eating. Like it was not a great spot because I had bitten off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had to make the financial plans afterwards. And I was like, oh, now might be the time to start looking into that, which is, I wouldn't recommend people do it that way. They should probably do it plan first. But I was just doing it based on I can't survive like this. So I'm going to roll the dice here, and I know I'll be fine based on my sales volumes, but I didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
And I also got a warehouse in the same month that I quit my job. So my overheads went through the roof, but it's all worked out. We're here. So
did you have someone that, like when you did that financial plan, was it something that you outsourced to like an accountant or a financial planner or something like that? Or did you have, was it something you did yourself?
A very, very good friend of mine used to be an operations manager at a major e-commerce brand in Australia. And so I worked with her for like, we did a full day thing. When she came in, she's like, you know how they say there's marketing girlies with like bows and stars?
Yes.
That's me. She's marketing and operations with like stock emojis and money emojis. So she came in and it was so uncomfortable. She lifted up the hood and she looked at it and she was like, okay, we're just going to do this and we're going to do some of that and we're going to put these expenses here and do this and do that. We did that very early January this year. And then I got a new accountant who's more in terms of financial planning and stuff like that. My last one is probably my fault because I guess you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what questions to ask if you've never done this before. So I was moving into we're making profit now. I don't know what services I need from you in order to pay myself in the most logical way. I don't know how to ask. So I was just going to him every year for my tax return or like to do my taxes and whatever. And that was about it. And I was like, nah, I need someone more like in the weeds who's going to help me. So I got a new accountant and it all kind of worked from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, George, that's probably something that you see quite a lot. Some of the businesses that maybe were at Beth's stage, you know, this time last year, that then they do shift over to you and there's so many more opportunities as part of like an accounting.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because a lot of the time that's so true. We'll have like a new client will come in and it's like, oh, I didn't know that you can sit down and do a cash flow session with you. I didn't know that we can pay dividends or I can take a wage. It's just you're so spot on where you just don't know what you don't know.
You don't. And like the dividends thing is a really great example. Like we haven't got to that point yet because I'm still very much owed founder loan.
Oh, amen to that.
So that's how I've made this work since leaving my job is the founder loan thing, right? So that's a slay. We love that. But that's going to run out sooner or later, probably by the end of the year, at which point what's the best way for me to pay myself? Like should I go on a salary? Should I have dividends? Should I be a subcontractor to my own thing because I have my ABN from my makeup days? Like all of these questions that I don't... First of all, I didn't know to ask them until like January this year. Now that I do know how to ask them, I finally found someone who can really help me in a really good way and provide even ideas about, okay, based on what you've told me from these, you know, qualifying questions, which I'm sure any reasonable person would ask, like, what's your revenue? What's your this? What's your that? Based on those questions, he's like, whoa, okay, cool. So I think we should be having this kind of tax planning session once 100%. Or twice a year. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. And I'm like, perfect. Send me the contract. Let's go. Because I so firmly believe, and you'll love this, but it's only as of this year that I believe it because I'm surviving off this business now, is if you don't know your numbers, you are just not going to make it.
That's so true.
Because you're going in blind, like your head's in the sand.
And there's so many moving parts to an e-com business too.
Yeah.
Like cost of goods, your stock, shipping, like you said, warehouse. Okay, cool. I got a warehouse now. Do I need a warehouse person?
Exactly. And this is the thing, like in that session that I did in January, I really like looked at all the expenses I had and then went even deeper into all the expenses I thought I had. Like what are the fees on every payment that Shopify, PayPal or Afterpay takes? Like, so if I think my revenue is this, it's actually not that when I get paid out. What's my subscription cost to Shopify? What's my subscription cost to this, that, whatever, all these apps, all this stupid stuff, right? That adds up, right?
Yep.
It adds up so quick. And then so I worked out all of that and then I divided it by, you know, this is what it costs in a month.
Yep.
This is what it costs every day. So this is my cost to keep my lights on every day. So I need to be hitting X revenue to like break even. And then after that, how can I, you know, build the life that I want to with this business?
Yep.
If you asked me this a year ago, I would have been like, what?
Yeah.
But I wish I was here sooner.
Yeah. I think it's so important to have that baseline financial understanding just so you can have those conversations.
Yeah, totally.
Because so many businesses I've seen where they're doing millions and millions in revenue and they still don't know. Because they're just so caught in the weeds, delivering the product or delivering the service that their head's buried in the sand.
I completely agree. And I think because of the almost democratization of entrepreneurship and how everyone can just do it now. I mean, I'm sure they always could, but it's really sexy, right? To have your own business and like have a product and like do this and do that. And I can sell anything online anywhere in the world. And that's really cool. Like that is really cool. But it also means that something that is really, really hard has become accessible to people who probably aren't going to put in the right amount of effort, who aren't going to end up asking those questions at one point or another. And you could get royally screwed with like a tax bill or something like that. And you'll be like, but I was making, you know, $2 million last year. It's like, well, what did you do with it?
Yeah.
Did you plan for the tax? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Sing it to the choir.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Totally. And I mean, going back to, you said that recently you sort of went viral on TikTok. What kind of role has content creation and social media played in the growth of your business?
Yeah. It's been like instrumental. It's probably been the number one thing to propel our growth forward because we definitely grew organically through video content prior to starting any sort of paid media strategy. I made a promise to myself in the beginning of 2021 in one of the lockdowns. I was like, I'm going to make a TikTok every single day for 30 days on this St. Jack account and just see what happens. Had no plan. I just made a promise to myself because I had nothing else to do. Yeah. And so I taught myself, I'm not a natural born content creator. Like it would shock you if you go look at my TikTok account now. I used to pretend to be sick when it was drama at school. I hated it. The idea of like improv, telling jokes, like skits, like performing, it made me feel physically ill. And now I do that for a living. So I had to like desensitize myself to making content. And then, the business thrived on content with just like the blue spray and content on TikTok and stuff like that. But then when I had the next product, because the brush cleaner, like my hero baby, my favorite child, don't tell the other one, because I had such a strong before and after visual element, it was easier to sell in a cold ad to people because they just see it and they'll be like, whoa, that's awesome. But also roughly around that time, I started leaning into more storytelling aspects in content and just exploring different avenues and just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Stuck. What stuck? Yeah. I mean, it's been everything, but it's changed a lot. Like even the content I was putting out this time last year is very different to what we do now. So
what are the major differences?
I was doing like a lot of more montage stuff last year, like this is my small business, blah, 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 blah. And now we're doing a lot of comedy. I have Hannah who helps me a couple of days a week. She's now like the kind of supporting actor character in the content. So there's two of us to bounce around with, whereas this time last year it was just me. So there wasn't that dynamic of kind of fun and more stuff happening, but also TikTok in general. But when I say TikTok, I'm more just talking about video content that can be repurposed essentially anywhere. Although it is kind of different. There are things I'd put on TikTok that I wouldn't put on Instagram because it is so rogue and weird. TikTok is just so much more oversaturated now.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder to get views, let alone go viral in the way that we would like. We're seeing a lot of what we call delayed attribution at the moment, where a video that we posted 2 months ago is getting astounding views, but the videos that we're posting this week are getting nothing.
Yeah.
So our strategy at the moment is to just keep going with the same momentum that we've always had and just like take the hit to the ego. And then hopefully in 2 months, like that video will perform.
Yeah. And I mean, like that idea, like you said, like you started in a place where you were like relatively uncomfortable, it wasn't natural, which I know there's a lot of business owners that we talk to at the moment that when we're having these conversations about putting out content and putting out video content and providing value, that's kind of the challenge that they're facing at the moment is they're not comfortable in that space. So do you have any sort of like tips or recommendations just to help them get started?
Honestly, I've heard stuff like this too. When I was working in the agency and like we were talking to clients and they were like, I want to go viral on TikTok and blah, 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 but I'm not going to make content that shows my face and I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. It's like, well, you can't have one without the other, doll. So my advice to them is if you are still sleeping on TikTok today, like when you listen to this show, you might as well stay in bed because it's almost too late.
Yeah.
You just have to do it. If it makes you cringe, like we say, you've got to climb cringe mountain. Like if it makes you cringe and you're like, oh, like why did I say, oh God, that might be the one. And just put it out there. And if 100 people see it, who cares? If 10,000 people see it and then maybe you're getting some traffic to your website and conversions, you'll be like, I'm going to do that an hour a day, every day. Pragmatically, I would say you need to devote some part of your week to planning and creating content and mass making it. So you've just got enough to roll out through the week and so you've got everything else to do. But if you really, really just do not feel comfortable in front of the camera, and there's some people who don't, and that's fine, you need to find somebody who will for you and essentially pay them handsomely to essentially be the face of your brand if you can't do it. But I don't use UGC creators. I had a really interesting conversation with a creator yesterday because she sent me the most impressive outreach email I'd ever seen. And I was like, I'd love to give you work, but I just don't do it because only content, like founder-based content for me performs.
Yeah.
I would encourage people to think about it that way. No one's going to represent your business better than you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said also that sometimes you post stuff to TikTok that you wouldn't necessarily post to Instagram.
Yeah.
So obviously, do you have kind of a strategy sort of approach to your content creation, or is it just depending on what's trending, depending on what's interesting in the business at the moment?
Yeah, you're going to hate this because it's not a strategy, it's an instinct. Because I am actually chronically online, I'm not one of these people I'm not faking it. Like when I make a TikTok video, like I'm on TikTok all the time. I am doing it in mind to be like, okay, what can I do next? What can I create next? How can I make this about me? Oh, as per usual. But I'm not, like I'm actually one of you. Like for the people who are watching my video, I'm like one of us. So like I get it. And so there are just some things instinctually that I know that's native to TikTok that TikTok users will understand that Instagram users won't. Instagram users will typically see whatever's trending on TikTok 2 weeks later. And Instagram views at the moment are actually really good. So it's about finding the right balance. Like for example, just like giving a little example, it would be fine. Yesterday, we put up a video where we were making a candy salad. So you get a tub of lollies and then you tip out candy.
The candy trauma.
Candy salad.
Yep, I think I saw it.
The second one we've done. So this is version 2. And this one was, we also didn't put version 1 on Instagram either because version 1 was about our work traumas, things that had happened to us at work that were just so traumatic, and you dump candy into a tub. And then yesterday we posted one. Yeah, it's irrelevant, right? But it gets views. And then yesterday we did one where I was like, icks that men give us, like things that they do that give us the ick, and we make the salad. It's like, I'm not putting that on Instagram because Instagram users won't get that, whereas TikTok users will. So it's about understanding what's native to that platform and what might have some good crossover. Typically speaking, storytelling elements, launch type things, things that are relevant to the business are better on Instagram. Things that are completely irrelevant are better on TikTok because what you're trying to do is drive traffic and views, and then they go to your profile and then they can see everything else and what you're about.
Yeah. And how do you balance the, I guess, like quote unquote sales content, product content, branded content with some of that more engaging, entertaining, like you said, irrelevant style content?
It's interesting because it's relevant and it's not. I almost want to take that back because it's relevant because it's me, and I think that our brand being me and Hannah and like our vibe and our ethos and what we're about plays a big role in why people buy from us. But in terms of like actual videos and content about like my product and how it works, I aim to get 2 or 3 up a week, but I just know that they won't perform views wise, but I want them to be scattered on my grid so that people can go and watch them, see that, okay, great, that's what they sell. Now I want to watch them do another candy salad. But yeah, those kind of product-based videos do perform well in our paid strategy, but also so do our lip syncs to ABBA in our paid strategy. So I don't know, it's a jungle out there.
Yeah, I did enjoy the ABBA one when you were kind of like rolling over the boxes.
The ABBA one was a masterpiece, if I don't say so myself.
It was a masterpiece.
That was a 3 coffee situation, and we had the roller door up, and people were eating lunch. Like we're right near the kitchen in this co-working space I'm at. We had the roller door up. We were giving a performance, but completely shocked me that was our best creative on a paid platform during Afterpay Day.
Wow.
So it didn't even say what the product was, and it was getting cold sales because people were like, fuck yeah, ABBA. And then they clicked on it. They're like, oh, that's cool. I'll buy that. What? That's crazy.
Yeah. You mentioned storytelling a couple of times with the content. Do you have a process to coming up with these TikToks?
Yeah. I mean, like today would even be a great example. It's like, okay, so today I woke up and I got into full glam hair and makeup to go into the city to record a podcast with an old friend. How can I make that interesting in a way that someone might relate to? It could be an angle like, the process would be, how do I make something that's happened to me in whatever it is interesting to a stranger? Because these stories would be interesting to my friends or my family if I'm like, oh, I went and I recorded a podcast today with Zara and it was awesome, blah, blah, blah. We met when we worked XYZ, blah. They find that interesting because they love me and they love Zara, right? However, a stranger doesn't know me from bar of soap. So how do I make it interesting for them? I used to be really afraid of public speaking, but today I did blah, blah, blah. And on the way I got Loon. And is it just me or is like Loon kind of like slipped in quality a little bit, like throwing a little bit of like bait for controversy or whatever. Yeah. But it's like making it relatable to somebody else on the basis of this thing genuinely used to make me quite nervous, but I don't care anymore. And this is how we got there. So it's just about finding an element in it that would be relatable to a complete stranger.
So that's your framework.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Thank
Has
you.
Loom gone downhill? I've only had it once.
I had it earlier today. And I got to say, there was something missing. There was something missing in that. And I'm a bit of a croissant connoisseur. I was really looking forward to it. No, it was all right. I think it needed a little bit more salt or something. I don't know. Please, Loon, don't come for me. I love you so much. The founder of Loon's business story is phenomenal. Should be studied at uni. But anyway.
There you go. I would love to eat a croissant, but I can't. Celiac. So.
Oh no, sorry. Didn't mean to bring it up.
It's like I walk past and I just like inhale the smell and I just pretend I can eat it.
It's good. It's probably better this way.
So obviously content creation, video content is huge. Beyond content creation, what other kind of strategies have you been using for the business?
Yeah, it's a great question. In terms of paid, we're not really doing anything right now outside of Meta, like video, stuff like that. I mean, we do use statics in that as well, but we're about to start dabbling into Google Ads. But also I want to have a much stronger focus on nurturing my existing customer base. And that's going to be through Klaviyo and email marketing. But also I do a lot of that manually. And I think that this is a really underrated marketing strategy. And obviously, depending on the scale of your business, it's not achievable. But I get really in the weeds of my St. Jack social media accounts. I'm prolific commenter, messenger. Like if somebody's like put something amazing on their story and they purchased from me a couple of times, like they're in my community, I'm like, oh my God, you're getting married? You were a beautiful bride. Like that looked amazing. Oh my God, you got a new puppy? That's so cute. What's the puppy's name? They put up a story that they're using the brush cleaner. I send them a voice memo and I tell them how much, I love that and blah, blah, blah. And you've made my day and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
All of it is sincere, but they will always remember that like that brand, when it comes to buying something of this nature, that brand is not St. Jack. It's Beth from St. Jack. And she's my mate.
Yep.
I was at a bar a few months ago, late at night, and a girl came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder. She's like, oh my God, Beth. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? She's like, it's me, blah, 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 from St. Jack. Oh, I'm like your favorite customer. Blah, blah. I'm like, of course you are. And she literally got her phone out and showed me the voice memos I had sent her about something or other. She's like, oh my God, it's so exciting to meet you, blah, blah, blah. that is my marketing strategy right now, is like making those connections, because it's just so much harder to make sales these days. So it's like, I want to nurture my customer base. So obviously we do things with automations, with email marketing, blah, 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 whatever. But I'm really there for people on a personal level too.
Yeah. I guess it's like taking that community engagement to that next level.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so simple to do. Like it takes me 30 seconds to send someone a voice memo about something, but they'll never forget that.
Yeah. I think I read something the other day, that like 70% of customers want to have like personalized conversations with businesses and brands. And so I guess that goes beyond, which we've spoken about before, is like email marketing and how you can really personalize and segment your email marketing campaigns and your automations. But I guess that even takes it to that next level again. Yeah. And it's actually having that one-on-one interaction, building those relationships.
And it's super simple. Like it doesn't have to go so far as a voice memo. Like I'll only do that here or there if like this person's been in the, my ether for like a couple of years and I know who they are, right? But it's like even just commenting on people's posts, showing up, replying to every single comment I get without fail within 24 hours. Like if people are taking the effort to comment on something that you make and say, oh my God, this video made me laugh, or oh my God, that product looks amazing. It's like, you better believe I'm replying to them and I'm making sure that they know that I heard you. It's just so simple, and so many people fuck it up.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's so cool.
Well, thank you. I'm just chronically online. What can I say?
Yeah.
Is there heaps of volume with that?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very aware that at scale it won't be possible in the same way.
Yeah.
But in these, like, I still feel like these are early days. In these early days, while I have the capacity to do that, and it's not always. I mean, would I be sending all of these messages and whatnot during Black Friday? Probably not. It's more of a like, react, stitch, and a heart emoji situation. But it's not going to be possible at scale. So in the interim, we can do it now.
Yeah.
And Hannah is starting to help me a little bit with that on that community management side. But yeah, where we can, it'll just be me.
Yeah. How do you see that kind of evolving in the future, that content creation? Obviously, there's new kind of software, there's new kind of trends, a lot of like AI and all that sort of stuff coming into it as well. But how do you kind of see some of those trends changing and those different platforms?
You're not going to like
controversial.
this.
Coming up.
It's not controversial. I'm just a creative at heart. And I just don't think, like, I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use much AI. My sister is a thought leader in the data space, and she has scared the living shit out of me in terms of ChatGPT and stuff like that. And she's like, the more information you put in it, like, it's going to learn and like take over the world. And I don't know, she's right about that, but it scared me off, right? So I do a lot of things manually. And in terms of like creative ideation, I feel like that's best with humans, because it's about human experience. And it's like, there are lots of ways to throw in like prompts into ChatGPT and get ideas for videos, but that's what a computer is telling you to do. I want to know how, through my content, whatever it is, how can I connect with a stranger, most importantly, on the other side of a phone who's watching it. And yeah, I'm not going to be diving into AI or tech for that anytime soon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I like it.
Unpopular opinion.
I like it. So St. Jack has expanded really recently.
Yeah.
Blown up quite a lot, and I saw that you've hit 10,000 orders.
Yes.
And you've expanded into the warehouse space as well, which is really significant. So take us back to some of those key decisions and strategies that really helped you get there.
Yeah, I mean, really investing into paid marketing last year. I mean, up until, this is going to make people cringe, but the organic was working. Up until like March or April, I was just spending $5 a day on retargeting ads.
Yep.
Investing into getting cold traffic through the door and like, creative specifically for ads and stuff like that. That was probably the biggest thing. It's been like quite a challenge, because realistically, I do have the blue spray that was like the first baby, the makeup cleaning mist. But the business to date has really been built on the back of one primary SKU, like that brush cleaner. And so keeping that interesting has been the strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the growth is amazing, and I really would just put that down to I've just kept going. Like, I haven't taken a break. Don't think that's healthy. I did recently go on my first holiday in like 4 years, which was amazing, and I've come back refreshed. But yeah, it's just we've kept the wheels spinning, and I have taken as little money out of the business for myself as humanly possible, so it can all go back reinvested into more product, right? So that I can get my cost of goods down, but also really heavily this year into research and development for new formulas and new products that'll come really soon as well. So
exciting.
Yeah, it's been like keeping it going enough to pay for everything else, and then keep growing from there.
Cool.
Exciting.
What's the plan for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah,
Where do you see it?
I read this one. I was like, what? 5 to 10 years? I hope and I know we will be in retailers. Certainly we'll be in retailers by then. I think that would be really good for our brand. I would love to get distribution set up in the States and in Europe as well. We launched into New Zealand in June, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is because the whole flammable thing. So that only really became an option for us in like December last year. So launch into New Zealand. We'll launch into some other countries next year as well. And in terms of the product line, I was thinking about this because I read the question. It's like there are some really obvious next steps for me and things I've already got in motion that we'll be able to do like in the next 12 months, right? But beyond that, there might be like some sort of pivot into something else that I haven't really worked out yet. But it's about making products that feel consistent for my brand and for my customers, but also things that I would buy because that's served us pretty well till this point.
Is the US a different beast?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and there's so much competition there. There's so much, there are brands that already exist like mine that have been used by professional makeup artists from Hollywood for 40, 50 years, really well-known brands in there as well. But I mean, just the distribution and e-commerce there, like I would love to see what that's like.
Yeah.
And I think it would mean probably spending some time over there as well because of the flammable issue, which continues to be an issue. It's big and it's heavy and it's whatever.
Yep.
I'd be really interested to see what sort of 3PLs and stuff we'd need to do over there, but that wouldn't be, I don't think, for the next at least 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And for those people at home that are listening that have a really brilliant idea that either they've been talking about with friends, family, they've been thinking about this for a little while, what advice would you give them to kind of help them take that leap?
To help them take the leap. Because my cautionary advice is be really, really sure that you're going to care about this enough in 5 years' time to take the leap in the first place. But the encouraging thing would be if you really believe that it's a good idea, you'll just regret it if you don't do it. And like if you can do it in a risk-free-ish way, be like, okay, is there $5,000 or $10,000 I'm willing to shove down the drain if this fails? Why wouldn't you do it? Like we're probably actually past the golden age of e-commerce, to be honest, but let's just say we're still there. Like give it a go, like give it a crack because it's really, really hard work, but it's also very fulfilling. Yeah, just be sure that you really want to do it because you do have to make some pretty serious like sacrifices with your time and your resources and your lifestyle. But it is all worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it is. And there's days where you don't want to do it anymore.
Oh, totally.
And if you're not 100%, that's when you're going to go, nah, too hard.
I was talking to someone about this yesterday. They were like, oh, I saw your TikTok and it's so great and it's so funny and it's so this. I'm like, what you wouldn't know is that I was having like a mental breakdown either the day before or the morning of us filming that. But I know when I come to work that day, I don't have a choice. Like I have to show up essentially as a comedian to sell product these days. And it's like, I don't have a choice because that has to be done because that's my job. So the same way an actor would go to work and if they're in a rom-com but they just got broken up with, they still have to be all like lovey-dovey and whatever. It's like you have to show up. And if you don't have that in your soul where, for example, if you had a 9 to 5 and you just started like sniffling a little bit and then you called in sick for work because you're like, oh my God. It's like, no, if you're that kind of person, you're probably not cut out for it because you've got to push through all of the little like life incidences like to keep going, like to make it work. Like,
of course.
It's just, I'm so passionate about it because I think it's almost worrying the way that it's so easy to make a business these days and people don't actually know what it takes to keep it going. Like it's so easy to start, but it's really hard to keep it going.
Yeah. How do you stay motivated throughout that process?
I don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
And that is almost enough because I don't have, I mean, look, I do because if it all went to shit for whatever reason, I'm sure I could get a very lovely job at some marketing agency and it would be great and whatever and I could teach my ways and be like, back in the day when I had a brand, blah, whatever, and I'd be fine. So that's plan B, I guess. But really, I don't have plan B. This is how I pay the rent on my warehouse. This is how I pay the rent on my house. This is how I stay fed. This is how I feed my dog and like live my life. And I want this. Like I really want this. And so all of my motivation comes from me, like it's intrinsic. But I really believe, like I think I heard Gary Vee say this like 5 or 6 years ago when I was still listening to Gary Vee, but he was like, being an entrepreneur isn't a decision, it's in you. So like you either have it or you don't. And like if you do, it's like, well, that's just how I show up every day. So that's the motivation because it's just in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually listened to I don't know if it was a podcast or just like an audio snippet from Denzel Washington.
Ooh.
This was a while ago and he was talking about it and he was saying, if you're going to fall forward. Like don't fall backwards onto a plan B or don't fall backwards onto a backup plan. If you're going to go into it, go all in and just be prepared to fall forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And we really embrace failing and mistakes and all that. Like I'm not all for it in terms of cleaning it up afterwards, but I'm all for it in theory, like to be like, okay, we can try something and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that's the idea of falling forward, right? And it's like if you've got a really amazing idea for a business, you're never going to know if you don't do it. Somebody else has probably also got that idea somewhere else. And so like, let's go, like, let's do it. What's the worst that can happen? You learn something and you can share that with other people in the future. Really.
Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
don't bankrupt yourself or something.
And then I guess final question that I kind of have, and I don't know if you've got any more, Jords, is there a particular kind of resource, podcast, book, something, whether it be a business book or whatever it might be, that's you could recommend to people that could help them along?
Cliche answer. The new Stephen, well, it's not even new anymore, is it? The new Stephen Bartlett book, The 30 Laws or whatever. I recently finished reading that on holidays. And what I liked about that is it's in like little succinct chapters about different lessons and whatnot. I really feel like that's the kind of book that I'm going to have on my shelf for the next 15 years. I'll pick it up maybe once or twice a year and things in it will hit differently depending on what stage of business I'm at. I think that that's just a really good investment for anyone. For people in e-commerce, I've been thinking about this a lot. The people who made Who is Elijah, which is an Australian independent fragrance brand. Her name's Raquel Burris, the founder of it. Her partner, husband, now father of her children, Adam Burris. They are just gods in my eyes in terms of e-commerce, but also their transparency with their business. They have an episode on Dylan Mullen's podcast called Life, Money, Love. They've been on it twice, but the second one, which was recorded last year, essential listening for anyone in e-commerce. Like they kind of tell the story of how they were almost on the ground, like ready to give up, and then something happened and then they picked themselves up again and blah, blah, blah. The importance of taking control of your own marketing, the warnings in terms of agencies. It's just such a great episode. I've listened to it like minimum 3 times.
Wow.
I love them. I think they're great.
It's on the list then.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome.
We should bring them on.
Yeah. And when you do, I might just pop by.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm back.
Today I'm wearing Nomad.
That's my scent.
I just think that they're fab. And I probably like them for the same reason that fragrance is also a dangerous good. It's also got alcohol in it. They've had to deal with a lot of the same hurdles that I have to. But also for me, I think about it a lot. They're up against like some of the biggest luxury retailers in the world, like Chanel, Dior, Jo Malone, like whatever, like all these people who have made fragrances that our mums and whatever have worn for 50 plus years. And they're like, no, we're going to make something fun and fresh and achievable and affordable and accessible for people, but still be luxurious. And we're going to stay in our own lane despite having probably hundreds of competitors. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like the mental strength that they must have. So listen to that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Cool. We'll pop it in the show notes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Beth. It was so nice to chat with you. It was so nice to see you again and hear about the journey.
Time flies, man.
It has. I know. It's crazy. But it's so nice to see you doing stuff that makes you passionate.
Thank you.
And that, it's very obvious that you're doing it for the right reasons and it's translating and everyone's loving it.
Yay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Very
Beth.
cool.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.